wisdom,
prudentia,
justice,
justitia,
temperance,
temperantia,
courage.
fortitudo.
Applying ancient philosophy to modern life, this is the Sunday Stoic.
Welcome to the Sunday Stoic Podcast. This is Steve, and the Sunday Stoic is a weekly podcast where I explore the modern application of the ancient philosophy of Stoicism. I'd like to start by thanking my newest patron, Alex. If you would like to support the show, you can go to www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Or, if you prefer just to buy me a beer, you can go to PayPal, email address sundaystoic@gmail.com, and send a couple bucks, and I'll drink a toast to you. But you don't have to support the show financially. You can just write in and tell me hi, let me know where you're listening from, give the show a review on iTunes or whatever platform you listen to, just to help keep the show alive. This week we are going to hear from Seneca, and as with most of the letters we read from Seneca, he's writing to his friend Lucilius, and in this case he's going to discuss a rough trip that he's had on a ship. He was on a ride on a vessel on the ocean, which he is not a fan of, apparently, not a fan of going out to sea, and it got rough and windy, and he's writing to Lucilius to tell him about his experience and his reflections on the event. He recommends that we try to root out and cure ourselves of faults in our character. What's interesting about this upcoming reading is Seneca acts in, from my opinion, in a fairly unstoic fashion. He kind of reveals his privileged position in society and kind of acts in a way that I would not be proud of if I acted that way. It's understandable what he does, but I don't think I'd be proud of it. I have edited this letter down in order to make it a little easier to read, a little shorter. Moral Letters to Lucilius by Seneca, number 53, on the faults of the spirit. We cast off when the sea was lazily smooth. The sky, to be sure, was heavy with nasty clouds, such as usually break into rain or squalls. But when we were so far out that it made little difference to me whether I returned or kept on, the calm weather, which had enticed me, came to naught. The storm had not yet begun, but the ground swell was on, and the waves kept steadily coming faster. I began to ask the pilot to put me ashore somewhere. He replied that the coast was rough and a bad place to land, and that in a storm he feared a lee shore more than anything else. But I was suffering too grievously to think of the danger. Such a sluggish seasickness which brought no relief was racking me, the sort that upsets the liver without clearing it. Therefore I laid down the law to my pilot, forcing him to make for the shore willy-nilly. I remembered my profession as a veteran devotee of cold water, and clad as I was in my cloak, let myself down into the sea, just as a cold water bather should. What do you think my feelings were, scrambling over the rocks, searching out the path, or making one for myself? I understood that sailors have good reason to fear the land. It is hard to believe what I endured when I could not endure myself. And in the future also, if I must go anywhere by sea, I shall only reach my destination in the 20th year. When I finally calmed my stomach, for you know that one does not escape seasickness by escaping from the sea, and refreshed my body with a rub-down, I began to reflect how completely we forget or ignore our failings, even those that affect the body, which are continually reminding us of their existence, not to mention those which are more serious in proportion as they are the more hidden. A slight ache deceives us, but when it has increased and a genuine fever has begun to burn, it forces even a hardy man, who can endure much suffering, to admit that he is ill. There is pain in the foot, and a tingling sensation in the joints, but we still hide the complaint and announce that we have sprained a joint, or else are tired from overexercise. Then the ailment, uncertain at first, must be given a name, and when it begins to swell the ankles also, it has made both feet, right feet, quote unquote, we are bound to confess that we have the gout. The opposite holds true of diseases of the soul. The worse one is, the less one perceives it. Let us therefore rouse ourselves, that we may be able to correct our mistakes. Devote yourself wholly to philosophy. You are worthy of her. She is worthy of you. Greet one another with a loving embrace. Say farewell to all other interests with courage and frankness. Do not study philosophy merely during your spare time. Philosophy wields her own authority. She appoints her own time and does not allow it to be appointed to her. She is not a thing to be followed at odd times, but a subject for daily practice. She is mistress and commands our attendance. Alexander, when a certain state promised him a part of its territory and half of its entire property, replied, I invaded Asia with the intention not of accepting what you might give me, but of allowing you to keep what I might leave. Philosophy likewise keeps saying to all occupations, I do not intend to accept the time which you have left over, but I shall allow you to keep what I myself shall leave. Turn to her, therefore, with all your soul. Sit at her feet. Cherish her. A great distance will then begin to separate you from other men. You will be far ahead of all mortals, and even the gods will not be far ahead of you. Do you ask what will the difference be between yourself and the gods? They will live longer. But, by my faith, it is the sign of a great artist to have confined a full likeness to the limits of a miniature. What a wonderful privilege, to have the weaknesses of a man and the serenity of a god. The power of philosophy to blunt the blows of chance is beyond belief. No missile can settle in her body. She is well protected and impenetrable. She spoils the force of some missiles and wards them off with the loose folds of her gown, as if they had no power to harm. Others she dashes aside, and she hurls them back with such force that they recoil upon the sender. Farewell.
To put it bluntly, Seneca's being a bit of a dick here, I think. He's on a ship. He doesn't feel well. It's kind of scary outside. He's feeling seasick. And he tells the crew, hey, could you dump me off up here on the shore? And the captain's like, no way. The wind's blowing toward shore. It's really rocky. We might sink the ship and everyone might die. And then Seneca goes, I order you to put me on shore. And so what he tells Lucilius is that if he ever has to go by sea again, it will take him 20 years, which is, I think, 10 years longer than it took Ulysses to make his long voyage, because Ulysses himself may have been seasick and going on shore all the time, getting into all kinds of adventures. But what we see here is Seneca risking the lives of the crew in order to get off the boat. And of course, he's willing to dive right into the cold, cold water, scramble over the rocks, and get on shore. And then the other thing that really just separates his lifestyle from our reality, or my reality anyway, is he's like, oh, I still don't feel well. I think I'll have a rub down. And so somebody gives him a rub down, a body massage, I guess. I don't know. I find that kind of interesting. But he puts others at risk in order to alleviate his own suffering. And, I would say that's probably not super stoic. He doesn't really talk about it too much here as being unstoic, but in my mind, that's not exactly a stoic move. To me, it'd be better to suffer the consequences of seasickness and better ensure the safety of the crew at the same time. But he jumps into the rough, cold water, and he says it's because he could no longer endure himself, meaning his physical drive to get off that boat was so strong that it became a passion. He could not endure himself anymore. And he's just like, I want out, get me out of here. And boom, he jumps in the ocean, right? Seasickness is something outside his power, right? But he lets it kind of drive his actions. But he talks then about thinking about it once he's on shore. that even when the strongest person you know is very ill, they will have to admit it. We might be able to get by ignoring slight aches and pains, little things like that. But once someone's really ill, they will admit it. But the illnesses of the spirit, so the vices and passions that plague us, often act in a different way. The more sick we are, the less we are likely to admit it. I guess I'll have to hit stop now. Please hold. This podcast has been interrupted by my 3-year-old Charles. Charles is getting ready for bed. So the sicker we are, the less likely we are to admit it when it comes to illnesses of the spirit. But philosophy can cure us, but not if we are only Sunday Stoics. I'm sure you've heard of someone being a Sunday Christian, right? If you are from a Christian predominant nation like I am. But, people who practice their faith only on the day where you go show it off at church. But if we're just Sunday Stoics, that's not good enough. We have to be daily Stoics. And I'm sorry to Ryan Holiday for the appropriation. But we have to do it every day. We have to devote time to philosophy and occasionally make time for other things, but not the other way around. Seneca's saying we have to make philosophy like our primary driving force, and then make time for sport and make time for parties and other things, not the other way around, not make time for philosophy when you have a free moment, because you will not really improve yourself if you only let philosophy fill the small amount of free time that you have in life. So we need to devote quality time to philosophy. And lastly, he is talking about the idea of shaping ourselves into someone resembling a god, or as he says, shaping ourselves like a miniature god, right? A good artist can make a really good miniature, a miniature that looks just like the real thing. And he's saying that we can be like reflections of a god in that way. So, a sage would be like a god in that he or she would not be perturbed. They would be serene and calm in the face of whatever happens. Of course, they're unlike a god in that they only have a limited amount of time in the world, and they are not all powerful and things like that. But you can be like a god in your serenity. But only philosophy can be the shield against the slings and arrows of fate. Let others fear the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune, and hope to win it big by the luck of chance. Stoicism is a great leveler. It allows us to remain serene no matter what comes our way. And lots of things are coming our way. We just got to roll with it. All right, everybody. Have a good week, and carpe diem. Before I go, it's Steve again. This is 24 hours after recording the last episode. The dishwasher's running. The boy's asleep. But I've been thinking about this reading from Seneca. And before I go, I just want to point out, this also to me is a warning against what some call broism, or kind of selfish stoicism. And that is, be careful not to do what Seneca did. Seneca, in this reading, thinks about himself, thinks about getting out of a situation, and he does so in what he might think of as a manly fashion, right? He jumps in the cold water, which his training has prepared him for. He's a cold water bather, and he is able to handle it, and he gets on shore and is able to be soothed out of his seasickness. And that sounds very good and manly, but look at what he did to accomplish that. He imposed on others. He treated others poorly. He put others at risk in that process. And I don't know, in this reading anyway, that he actually acknowledges that very well. So think about that in your pursuits of being a good person. You cannot sacrifice your relationship with the whole and call yourself a good piece of society.
Thank you for listening to The Sunday Stoic. If you enjoyed the show, please subscribe, rate, and review The Sunday Stoic on iTunes. Become a member of the Sunday Stoic team, earn rewards, and be an integral part of the show by becoming a patron at www.patreon.com/SundayStoic. Contact the show by emailing sundaystoic@gmail.com or by leaving a voicemail at 501-503-3132. To find out more, visit www.sundaystoicpodcast.com. And as Steve always says, Carpe Diem.